All right, welcome back to We Are the Fall. And in celebration of our 100 plus episodes, what better guest than to have one of the Hanley brothers come and chat with us about all things fall, all things House of All. Steve, I know that we were thinking about, is it really necessary to interview Paul and Steve too? If they already have their own podcast, they've written books about being in the fall. What else is there to ask them? I don't know how you felt, but I was like, I don't know if it's necessary as much as we want to talk to them. I don't know if they'd be interested since they got so much going on, especially with House of All, the band.
I mean, I had a great hour with everybody's favorite little brother, Paul Hanley. And he seemed to enjoy himself too.
Yeah.
I'm more and more surprised the more people we talk to, how into it and how excited they are to kind of reminisce and talk about the fall and talk about their time there. They all
Yeah.
just have great thoughts and feelings around it. So they're always excited to open up and, share with us.
Yeah. And it's probably so difficult for them too to not fall into the old stories that are so good and entertaining that they know will get a response. But it's like it's interesting with Paul because he seems very interested in trying to uncover new things himself. And that's why I think that he's doing the podcast with Steve and why it's so successful is because they're also like great, interesting rock fanatics. And they're interested in the music and like what's going on outside, even like what's going on outside of their own personal experience in rock and roll, art rock music. They're completely intrigued. I mean, Paul has written now multiple books and he even gets into it about more ideas for the creativity that surrounds his own life and experiences and what could lead to being in a band, being a musician, coming from different backgrounds. So it's like something that fascinates him. It's something that fascinates us for sure. And it's great to talk to him. And we just got to say thanks to Paul for coming and hanging with us. And we hope you enjoy our chat with Mr. Paul Hanley. Paul, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about. We heard that you just wrapped up the House of All newest album. If you
Yeah.
could give us some insight into how that all went down and if it's any different or if you guys went with the same kind of process of going into the studio and seeing what happens.
Well, we haven't finished it. The basic tracks are all complete.
Okay.
So we did it pretty much the same as we'd done it before, where the actual premise is that we don't do any rehearsal. So people have ideas, obviously, but nobody shows those ideas to anybody else before we go in. So we're kind of right on it, really. So yeah, as ever, I always go in thinking this is never going to work. So
Yeah.
I went in the first time thinking there's no way this is going to work. Second time I was thinking, well, you can't catch lightning in the bottle twice. And then third time I thought, well, okay, all right. And then this time it was better than ever. Really, it was just such an enjoyable process. And then it's great to get back with everybody. It was fabulous, really. I was thinking we wouldn't have time to complete it. I always think that, but we did. We got through everything we needed to do. We did a bit more than we normally do. So yeah, really happy with the tracks. And we'll have to see where they go now once Martin gets his vocals on them. But I'm very optimistic about the album.
Oh, that's interesting. When you guys are recording, are you just jamming on songs and then Martin will come back later with the lyrics, or does he have
So
lyrics
what
in
happens
mind?
is
Okay.
we work on a tune until we're happy with it, and then get it down. And we just repeat that process however many times we can fit in. And then Martin has taken them away now, and he'll live with them,
Huh.
and he'll put what he thinks an appropriate lyric on
Huh.
to what each track, and then he'll go back in the studio and do it. And then obviously sometimes we all go back in and maybe do backing vocals or a bit of hands on.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a pleasurable experience from start to finish, really. And what's good about it is there's no wasted time, really, because as you get a bit older, you come to realize how lucky you are to be able to get into the studio.
Yeah.
So the days of sitting around playing pool for 7 of the 12 hours in the studio are long gone, which is no bad thing, really.
I wanted to ask you about that because I was rereading your book and it's so great because when you guys go to Iceland, you can just to start Hex Induction Hour, it's almost like you could feel like that change in culture had some sort of impact directly on the band and the group. And I don't, I'm just interested to hear from your perspective, because I've talked to bands that cannot go into a studio in their home city or hometown because of all the social responsibility outside of the studio. So I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Well, as you get older, you have less and less social responsibilities. So the only thing it meant was I was late getting on for my dinner. So it was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So my social calendar on a wet Tuesday in whenever it is isn't massively full up. So my dance card was pretty clear, I think. So we were okay with that. But yeah, I think it's good. I think it's a good discipline. It's like a working day, really. It's a bit longer. So, or whatever, like a 9 to 5 almost. And it puts you in a good headspace. Funnily enough, you were saying about the recording in Iceland. That was about as near to similar recording style as with House of All as the Fall ever got when I was in them, because we had a very limited amount of time, and one of the tracks was made up on the spot. So that was more like House of All working than most times when we pretty much knew what we were going to do when we went in the studio. There was a couple of times where things were worked up, but mostly it was, because the way the Fall works is we'd already played them live a number of times, most songs.
Even though you guys are taking the similar approach every time going in the studio with the House of All, it seems like you're also have somewhat, maybe unintentionally, a Fall approach of switching up or adding members and like switching up the group. And I'm wondering if that kind of changes the dynamic to make it feel maybe slightly different, or you have to change maybe a little bit of your strategy.
Well, this time, because we've got 3 drummers now, well, last time and this time, so we kind of have a tag team approach, really. So it's any 2 from 3. I mean, there's a couple of tracks. There's one on the last album that's all 3 of us, and there's one on this album that's all 3 of us. But for the most part, 2 drummers is. I mean, 2 drummers is enough to be playing live at the same time most of the time, and then maybe we'll have some percussion or whatever. But certainly in terms of getting ready for live, because the approach is very much as if we were playing live. So we normally have 2 drummers, so that's good. So it means that you get to listen to. I get to listen to 2 drummers I'm a fan of playing, which is great. And the same with live. One of the favourite bits of the last tour was when I get to watch Simon and Carl play together. I mean, I don't know whether they'd say the same. I'd like to think so. You'd have to ask them.
They got to. What is the process like when you're in the studio though, and you're trying to arrange 3 drummers playing? Like, what do you guys talk about as far as arrangement?
We don't do it.
No,
we don't do a lot of talking. No, there's very little. So basically, well, me and Cy were on this one, so maybe you and Carl do this one. That's about as deep as it gets, really.
Okay.
And then it's just a question of listening rather than talking. You just listen to what each other's doing. There's very little dialogue beyond let's double that up here or go a bit heavier here, but we don't. It's not the dialogue of talking about constructive music is not something we kind of buy into, really, because we don't have the language.
I
don't know how to say, other than show you this is what I'm playing. I can't say, oh, I'm doing this kind of roll, or this is a press roll that goes into a triplet, or any of that nonsense.
What was Carl playing drums at all before he joined you guys again?
No, he was playing at home for his own amusement and to keep his hand in. But no, he's not been playing in a band for a number of years now.
Huh. Yeah,
I know you wouldn't tell. You wouldn't be able to tell.
No, not at all.
No.
Do you know if he had any like apprehension about getting back into the live setting, or was he just all for it? Ready to go?
I think once he started playing with us, I mean, I think he was raring to go. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what his thoughts were, whether he thought he'd just come into the studio and play, but then it turned out so well that I think I'd like to think he was really happy. So yeah,
excited to put
it. I mean, it
genuinely
is exciting to play. It was genuinely exciting to play in a 2 lineup with Cy, because I've never done it. So that was great. And I mean, and then it was genuinely exciting to get back playing with Carl. I mean, it's always good to play with 2 drummers. It's a great privilege to be able to do.
Yeah, it sounds great on the album, and we would love to see it live.
Yeah.
I got to ask you, Paul, too. You guys got some tour dates coming up in November now that just were recently announced. What's it like? Steve and I both have brothers, and we're always talking about what would it be like to go on tour with your brother? Like, it seems like the most fun, but at the same time, I don't know if we could have lasted like 3 days together in a tour van. What's it like going on tour with your brother back then and nowadays?
We've never had a crossword, me and Steve. We always say that when people ask about that. I don't
Yeah.
people are imagining the Gallagher brothers or something, but no,
Hmm.
we've always worked really well together. And we get on because we're friends as well as brothers. So it's not a big stretch. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. One of the things we insist on is we get a room each. So maybe that if we have to share a room, maybe
Yeah,
I don't
that's
think
good.
so. I think we get on all right even if we shared a room. Neither of us has ever, we've never been unreasonable. I think that's the bottom line with each other. Certainly, I don't think we're unreasonable people at the best of times.
No, that's great because from the outside it appears that way, and it's nice to hear that, honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just saying it would seem weird to have your little brother come and join your band and you get
it
a little
was weird that.
animosity that's up there.
No, that was a weird thing in a way because I was, I was a little brother. I joined the Fall at 16. And I was Steve's little brother. At which point I became everybody else's little brother, and I'm still a little brother now. I'm 61, and whenever I'm out with Mark
Yeah.
or Craig, I'm still a little brother, and that's still my dynamic.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting away with it now. So I'll be 90 and still a little brother.
Did you feel like, I mean, how exciting was that for a 16-year-old to join a rock band, in his city? Like it seems like that's a pretty unique, special experience, especially with older musicians.
It was well, I don't. It was a dream come true. I mean, it was my only dream come true. Really, I didn't really have anything else that I wanted to do except be in a band. I was a big fan of the Fall. I was a big fan of all the Manchester bands, Joy Division and Buzzcocks. Buzzcocks especially was my favourite band, and the drummer out of Buzzcocks left school at 16 to join Buzzcocks. He was at the same school as me, so he was one of my heroes. And then to be able to do the same thing, it was just brilliant. And I loved the Fall. I loved the Fall before I was in them, and I loved the Fall after I was in them.
Mm.
So no, it was great, And one of the reasons we started a podcast in the first place because it seemed, for whatever reason, people always want to know about how hard it was or how difficult it was being in a band but it was, if you look back on it, it was great, I was 16, I was in a band with four of my mates and, the best lyricists going. So it wasn't a
Mm.
chore. I mean, it was hard work, but then, the best things aren't they?
Yeah, did you learn anything from, like, being in the band dynamic, especially the Falls work ethic that young that you've taken on in your life, like, moving forward?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. I mean, it's a way of you get in, you sit down, you look at what everybody else is doing, you keep your mouth shut and you keep your head down for the first year,
yeah,
and then you work out what your place in the band or is in the office or wherever you want really. And you work out. You don't go in there as if you know everything. I certainly
yeah,
didn't go into the fall as if I knew everything because I knew nothing. But
yeah,
and that's the way it's been with any other job. And you can
yeah.
see people who come in with a kind of arrogance that they're never going to fit in. You work your way in and you earn the respect of your peers. I think that's the only way you can do it, really.
Did you ever have an experience looking back where you were in the group and then you were doing something that was, related to being in the group, but you're like, "I never thought this was part of being in a band."
There was a bit of that, yes. I mean, it's a fall in some ways isn't like other bands.
Mm,
It was to say it's a job of work is wrong, but it was something that you worked at and you took pride in, and it wasn't frivolous. I think the impression I had that being in a band was just about having a laugh. It wasn't about having a laugh at all. I mean, you could have a laugh, like you can have a laugh at work, but you don't go to work
mm,
for that. You've got to get on with it. And if it's important, you've got to do it properly. So
yeah,
I think that is different from a lot of bands. you
yeah.
know. But it was a place of work in many ways, and all the better for it. I think. I think it becomes much more satisfying. I think because it's not always fun. It wasn't always fun, but it was always very satisfying.
It's interesting that we've had the pleasure of talking to multiple Fall members, and we see the band as a very serious band, like, the way that
Yeah,
they go on the way that you guys went on stage and, like, delivered the songs is absolutely, like, there's an edge to it that's great, that's what all the audience wants. But then talking to all you guys and Una too, about just your own personalities, it seems like there's, like, a sense of humor too that is almost, like, required to be in the
yeah,
Fall.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you have to have a sense of humor about it. But yeah, so you take the, it's because it's serious doesn't mean that you have to be serious all the time or anything stupid like that. But there is a shared, and that's one of the things about the podcast that's come out. There's this kind of shared sense of experience about that.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that enables House of All to work. I think is that we've all got a similar kind of outlook on being in a band because it's not like being in another band. So if you can hold your own in the fall, then you're okay with anything else that happens, I think.
Did you ever come across anyone that entered the band? You don't have to name names or anything, but or even someone that was like on the peripheral of the band that came in there that didn't have that sense of humor that kind of was like, this is where you were like, this is not going to work out at all.
Well, there's a few of those, I think, where people come in and they do a week and they get out, but we were very close. It's slightly different for me because we were very close knit. Me, Mark, Craig, and Steve were kind of like a band within a band, really. So we were like a sort of clique, if you like, within the band. So we had a very similar sense of humor. That not, Mark didn't always get Mark Smith, or and Carl, Carl was kind of sort of on the edge of that as well when he came back. So yeah, it's we're not always, it's not always the easiest band to fit in. But that's, as I say, that's what you've got to do. You've got to work out what this dynamic is and how do I fit in. And if you can do that, great. And if you can't, I don't think people lasted too long. I can't name. I don't want to name anybody, but certainly some sound people and and lighting people, but were a bit frazzled by the end of it.
Well, was the dynamic different with the band, like in the tour van or any when Mark was there or not there? I mean, was was the sense of humor just drastically flipped when he was in the room or not in the room?
Well, yeah, I think there is a bit of that. I think there was a bit of tailoring your behaviour to Mark being there, and it's a boss thing, and it's very important that people realise that the Fall, most successful bands aren't really a democracy.
Sure.
And there's a dynamic with a boss, and it's you can have a laugh, but it's his laugh, and that's something else that I've found, through working, being in a band, being in the Fall, and then working in a firm. There's a very similar dynamic to the boss, where if he wants to be your friend, he'll be your friend, but if he's not, if he's in the mood for being the boss, you can't then assume that you're his friend because it won't work. So it's not fair if in that way, it's not sometimes, it's not a great thing, but it's just the way it is. It's just what's the way bands work,
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not unique to the Fall. I think if you get Stephen Morrissey in a bad day, I don't think he'd be the most pleasant person to be around either.
Do you remember an instance where Mark asked you your input on something and it was like more meaningful because you were asked for that?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I've told this story before. That was when I joined the Fall. My audition, I played a gig with them, and then we had to audition. And my audition, they played a song which had been they'd put it out on an album, but it was just a cassette played in a bedroom, a song called New Puritan. And then Mark said, can you put some drums to this? Because there's no drums on the version that was put out. It's just a scratchy kind of guitar. So I put the drums on that, and Mark actually said, "That's great, really good. Do you think you could write a drum intro to that?"
Yeah,
which was like my first assignment, and so it's still my favourite bit of recording I did before. We did it on a John Peel session.
Yeah,
and that was just for him to say, "That's great. Can you come up with a drum intro?" I thought, well, okay, right, I'm in here. I know where I'm going here. But yeah, there was a few things where Mark, I think Pro Art Threat, I think was one where he said that's great. There's very few and far between. But it's funny how you remember them, isn't it?
Yes,
2 times he told me that what I was doing was really good.
Those are 2 good times. I mean, we agree with those 2 times too. Those are.
You kind of started right at the transition where Mark became the boss. Like, how did that happen naturally as the other founders kind of started to leave, or?
I think it was pretty much bedded in by the time I was in. So that happened when. So yeah, obviously you had the original 5, and Tony went, and Udo went, and then Carl went, and then by the time Martin had gone, and that any semblance of democracy had gone, it was, it was Mark's appointees, if you like. Which we were all happy with, I wouldn't have expected to come in the Fall as an equal member with Mark. That would have been ridiculous in a lot of ways, And as long as you know as long as you know that that's your role, that's fine. That's, but I think later on, sometimes when those lines get a bit blurred, if people have been in a band a long time, then the line between who's the boss and who's your friend, it can become a bit sticky at times, I think. But it was never a problem for me because I was, the new boy. I was brought in as a drummer, and then he was my boss. And that's fine. That's a perfectly healthy relationship between it. He was a bit older than me, probably not as old as I thought he was. He felt like a father figure in a way. He was probably only about 7 or 8 years older than me. But no, that was fine. I didn't mind that at all. And looking back, you realise how little of it I had anything to do with. I played the drums on it, and contributed to the writing a little bit, but I never booked a hotel. I never booked a van. I never picked an engineer. I never picked a studio. None of that was my domain. Which was one of the reasons I left, because I thought I don't really know what it's like to be in a band properly. I've never done any of that. I'm gonna do that for myself, and then it was a spectacular non-success. So that I should have kept kept my head down really. But
did you learn anything from doing that yourself?
I did.
You don't like it?
No, I learned that if you've got something that's as unique and so special as the Fall, why are you looking for something else? Really, that's what I should like. I mean, I think I would have needed to leave. I think I couldn't have done 20 years like Steve did. I don't think. I think I'd have gone. I don't think I was that dedicated to it as Steve was. I mean, I think few people are as dedicated as Steve was to keep going as long as he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea that I needed to scratch an itch and start my own band, it was a bit silly, really, because I was in a great band. If you're in a great band, stick with it.
But it seems totally natural.
Yeah, I mean, it was perfectly understandable. I know why I did it.
Yeah.
Because, as I say, I didn't know anything about running a band or what was really involved.
Yeah,
I've soon found out.
Paul, I wanted to ask you. So, talking about kind of managing of a band, is it true Grant Showbiz is doing the sound for you guys?
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. What is? I mean, you've worked with them, but like, what is he bringing to the band in the live setting, and even back in the Fall days? Like, what do you think his working dynamic was with the band that was making it so successful?
He's got an enthusiasm for it, really, that is, to be a sound man all that time and to still, be that excited to listen to the band and and talk about how good the gig was and all that. I mean, it's just great, and it's great to have the same as with the rest of the band. Really, it's kind of like that. You get a touring unit where everybody's on side and nobody's being silly, or and everybody's enthusiastic, and it's just another great thing. And he's great to work with, Grant. He's funny, and as I say, he's bullying. He's like Tigger. He like bounces in and bounces out. It's great. It's a joy to work with him.
Yeah, well, you've worked with so many producers in the Fall. What does it take to be a good producer with the group?
It's a really difficult question, that, because it's different things. I think an ability to work with Mark would be number one. I don't think that the many producers have come in and thought, I'm going to have a right tough time with that drummer getting his drum sound. I don't think that's what's daunting about working with the Fall. So an ability to work with Mark, I think the big ability to work with Mark, and I think that stands for us, and I've written about this before, is you've got to walk the line between doing exactly what he says and giving him what he wants. Basically, you give him what he wants, and then he might not even know that, he might not be able to articulate what he wants, but if you can give him, but if you just do exactly what he says, you might not bother. That never works, because so that it's not abandoned, is it? So I think that's an ability with a producer. He might say he wants, can you make it sound like a snake, or but you've got to then know what that means, and it's not always easy.
Yeah,
in fact, it's downright impossible at times. But you've got to have a go, and you've got to have your own ideas. I always say that with if Mark says, I don't want any drum rolls on this song, well, you're going to think, well, I'm not having that, but it's going to be a good one, isn't it? You're not going to put a shit drum roll in, are you? So you've got to be. He appreciated the pushback, I think, sometimes, if he says things like that, play one note all the way through, if you snick another note in and it sounds good, then that's great. That's you can't just do exactly what he says, and I think that's the difficult thing with producers. I mean, it's different. It changed as well. You see, that's the other thing. What John Leckie had to do was quite different from what Grant had to do on Dragnet. You wouldn't say that the role of the producer there was the same.
Yeah.
But as long as you could work with Mark, I think there was a definite shift with John to take the group to somewhere else.
Yeah. What was that like? What was that shift and what was that change?
I think there's been a lot of talk that we changed the way we roll or the things we roll, and I'm not so sure that's the case. But there was definitely a change to make it more commercial, for want of a better word. To make it more cross appeal.
Yeah.
Whether it works or not, I'm not so sure, and whether it was worth it, I don't know. But it was really interesting to make that difference, because we did Perverted by Language, which is quite dour, and
Right.
I love Perverted Language. So don't get me wrong, but then to say, well, we're not going to do that again, which is always a interesting thing. We did it with Room to Live. We did Hex Induction Hour, and everybody thought it was great. I mean, everybody thought it was great. All the reviews were great. Everyone in the band thought it was great. And then Mark said, well, we're not going to do that anymore. And I was, at the time, I was completely pissed off about it, but I can see why that's a good thing to do. You're never remaking the last album, which I think a lot of bands struggle with. It was completely, it just ripped up the whole thing, So everything on Room to Live was the opposite. So we got songs with 6 of us on. We'll just have 2 or 3 people there. Most of the songs we'd learned, grown up and played live a number of times. So we're not doing that. We're getting all this new stuff in. And what about if you don't play on this, and what if we get somebody else in to play guitar? It was, how much of that was a good strategy to make a good record, and how much of that was a good strategy to piss us off enough, something to that when somebody had end up out of the band. I don't know. I'm not sure Mark would know.
Yeah.
You fuck around, find out, and then say it was your plan all along, I think is the...
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah. Was the band invested in like those? I mean, it sounds like you said you were not like really on board with maybe like changing it up that drastically at some points, but was the band was informed we're going to get John Leckie to produce, we're going to go for this? I mean, did you guys even talk about that, or was it just like a natural thing to go for a different sound?
I'm not sure it was natural. It was quite a jolt, and then we did talk about it, but it was quite exciting. We signed to Beggars Banquet, which we weren't quite the biggest label in the world, but they certainly weren't rough trade, and there was money. And there was, equipment, and it was exciting, and there was the prospect of getting on top of the Pops or whatever. It was an exciting thing, I think you could equally say it's an exciting thing to go the other way, We're not going to piss about with all that videos and all that. We're going to go and just make proper, stripped down. Then that's exciting as well. So it's different, being different is what's exciting.
Yeah.
Let's do something, let's do it a different way, it's always massive exciting. And I think one of the reasons the Fall lasted 40 years is Mark or the band never did that. It was never right. We've got the way working now. Let's do that from now on. It never was that. Even even the last 10 years, there's a stable lineup, but they don't all the albums sound very different.
Right.
There was no formula there, was there?
Yeah.
I mean, formula's the death of it. Once you've done that and you're remaking the same album 2 or 3 times, you might as well forget it.
Exactly right. Mark always had this kind of esoteric nature of like giving instructions, like you were saying, like no drum rolls or play it like this, but he didn't have the kind of communication vocabulary. Do you feel like you got better from when you started in the group to the end about like deciphering those little things?
There's a thin line between deciphering and ignoring this. But then the big one for me was Totally Wired was his instructions to me was make it sound like a cardboard box. So consequently, in every interview, he always says, I wrote Totally Wired. But, if you can't say to the drummer, can you make it sound like a cardboard box is writing the song? Well, fair enough, then you wrote it. But, so, yes, I knew what he meant when he said to make it sound like a cardboard box. It's all toms, isn't it? It's all, but...
You didn't just bring in a bunch of different size boxes.
Cardboard boxes,
and see which one's tuned up for this one.
That's exactly it. If Mark says make it sound like a cardboard box, the obvious thing to do would be get a cardboard box, but that's not what he wanted. That's giving him exactly what he wants, and that's not what he wants.
Yeah. Paul, we're always interested in the way that the band was kind of presented or like presented themselves visually, because it's like very, I don't know, it's totally different, we think, than a lot of other bands of that time period, but also just in general, the way it's like so stark. Was there any thought to the way that the band was presented on stage?
Thought's a very strong word, no, but there is a kind of image there, isn't there? It was.
Yeah.
I mean, saying the band's got no image is an image, really, isn't it? But it was. There's a band look maybe Mark was slightly different, but it was all like charity shop jackets, but
Yeah.
it wasn't deliberate or it wasn't thought out. And let's look like this. It wasn't Dexys. We're going to wear dungarees for this next album or anything. The only change, it was just thrift store sort of cheap stuff that looked vaguely respectable. I think none of us wanted to look like punks or
Yeah.
maybe a bit maybe a bit later I got into a bit more gothic kind of clothes, but which wasn't a good idea. But
we think that was a good look. We like that look actually. We think it was pulled off.
Yeah, okay. The big thing I think was not to look weird's the wrong word, but Mark always had this thing that he wrote about ordinary life. So if he was coming out dressed like a rock star, then he wouldn't be part of that ordinary life, And I think there's something in that,
Yeah.
If he was, going to the pub and sitting with old men, if he was dressed like, leather trousers and a shirt open to the navel, then he wouldn't quite get the same experience. And I don't think he dared to ever cut himself off. And he certainly didn't. Well, he didn't want to look like a rock star. He didn't want to be thought of as one. He didn't like people in bands, so why would he want to dress like one?
Did he like getting recognized out in public? Did he like fans?
Depends. I think there's times where he thought it was quite nice to be recognised, and there's times where he hated it. Like most people, I should imagine. If you're in the pub on your own and you're with a friend, and he didn't want people mithering him then. But I think people were respectful. He was normally very nice to people when they came up. You couldn't guarantee it, obviously, but I don't think he was. Most of the time he was quite affable. I think just got to watch out for the times when he wasn't.
Yeah.
The story from Steve's book where the two guys wanted to get slacked off by Mark and were just standing around awkwardly in like the after party and just waiting. It's like, oh, just Mark told me to fuck off, and like that's all they wanted out of the whole experience.
What a weird thing. What's that? What the fuck?
Yeah, what is it?
What is that? Why would you want that? I don't understand. He's not it's not a cartoon.
No.
Not WWE wrestling. Why is he's a human? Why would you want to be told to fuck off by Marky Smith? I don't understand. I've never understood that at all.
No.
The obvious answer to that is, oh, fuck off then.
Yeah. The funniest part is they have to ask nicely to get the fuck
ask
off.
nicely, yeah. I want to be told to fuck off. I don't want him to hit me over the head with a bottle, so I will ask very nicely. Yeah, I mean that's a weird dynamic, guy, isn't it? What?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then give a $500 bottle of wine to him.
Yeah. Which was subsequently opened with a drumstick. Yeah, that did terrible. That they didn't even let it breathe, did they?
No, just passed it around the room, I'm sure.
Shocking. Wasted pills before swine.
Paul, did the band have any input on the album art or the track listing order? Was that anything? No,
I didn't.
You were
I
just
don't
surprised.
think so. I think that was on the album art, and probably Bricks did. I would imagine.
Yeah,
certainly an album art, because I think Klaus was a friend of hers. I think.
Yeah,
but no, I didn't. Let me put. That's all. I can't speak for now. I don't think Steve really did either. Craig maybe. Yeah. Craig was a bit more involved at some levels, and probably Martin. Obviously, that early lineup, I think that was more cooperative about when they designed Live at the Witch Trials and Bingo Masters. But no, that was Mark's domain.
Did you guys like getting your band photos taken and things like that, or was it?
It was all right. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't. We wouldn't take that. It wasn't that often, but it was often enough. Well, I always quite liked all that. Yeah, it's quite good. I mean, until you get one and you think, "What the hell's that? I look terrible in that photo." Because I never got to pick, so they take a bunch of photos and Mark could pick one and where he'd look good and I'd look shocking.
Sure.
Yeah. There was one where we were recording, I think we were recording Grotesque, and they took some photographs round the back of Cargo Studios, and I had this big sort of sty on my eye. Are they called sties in the US?
Oh yeah, sure. Sure.
Yeah. Big one. And I've seen that picture more times in the last 40 years. It was in smack hits, it's been in everything, that picture.
Of course.
It looks like someone's hit me. And it wasn't always my choice of which photo got used, let's put it that way.
Yeah. We talked to some other members that said that when they got into the group, they almost had to learn how to simplify everything they were playing, almost like strip it back to a minimalist nature. Was that a difficult thing to do or did it come naturally to you?
It came fairly natural to me because I wasn't that prolific or proficient, shall we say. I'd only been I got a run kit for my 14th birthday,
Mm.
So I haven't been playing that long really. I never had any lessons or anything. So it wasn't difficult for me to strip it back. That's all I had, I only had simple.
Yeah.
Well, I think which is one of the reasons I think Mark liked me drumming. I didn't have an arsehole of. I wasn't Carl Burns. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And to be fair, when Carl came back, he'd simplified his style a lot. I think part of which was obviously to play the stuff like Slates and the grotesque stuff, and part of it was because he was playing with me eventually. But it didn't suit the fall by the time by when the strip back was what it was about. It was. I mean, I'm being a bit disparaging there to say it was all we could play, and that was, but I think that's great, I think you can't, you sound like you because you can't sound like anybody else.
Yeah.
Is great, and if you can hang on to that, that's the difficult bit, and I think we managed it, as you get better, you don't start getting flash,
Right.
Because it doesn't necessarily, being more skillful, that doesn't necessarily mean it's any better. In fact,
Right.
a lot of the time, it becomes worse, I think. And it becomes more difficult to express yourself when everything's a skill rather than a inspiration, if you know what I mean.
I totally agree with you. It's like once you get to a technical proficiency, it's almost like you're thinking technically instead of emotionally. And
Yeah.
I totally get that dynamic. And that's one of our favorite things about listening to The Fall and House of All is that there's no flash to it. It's like, and it makes it totally re-listenable because there isn't like a flourish that you're always expecting. It's just like really beautiful in that regard.
That's one of the great things about House of All, really. You're deliberately setting limits on yourself, because I mean, how anybody records with open-ended time, I have never understood how you could go into the studio and say, well, we've got 5 years here to make an album. What is that? I mean, how could you possibly put yourself in the right mindset? I've always thought that about, and people can do it. You look at the Sagrada Familia, and you think someone started on that on day one and said this cathedral's not going to be finished for 120 years.
Yeah,
it's not going to put you back into it, are you? Come on, lads, come on, hurry up. but yes, if you've got open-ended time, I don't know anybody gets the right sufficient motivation to work because writing 4-minute songs, you're playing 4-minute songs. How can you possibly make that longer than, I don't know, 10 days or whatever? I just don't understand. I know how you do it. How you can do it. You can lose all faith in your ability. You can do anything but record. And a lot of bands do that. They'll do anything to get out recording. They'll pool tournaments. Injuries. Lose your voice, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's 3 days. Make me an album. It's a gift. Which is one of the reasons appeal sessions are so great. You've got a day and you're gonna have to record it, mix it, and get it done. There isn't the time, and nobody's gonna say come back tomorrow an appeal session. That's it. Hard luck. And it's great, and you end up with great work. I think
that's something that Steve and I are always talking about is like what set the appeal sessions apart because there is, I don't know, there's just something to it, and it's interesting to hear you say that because we're always talking about was it your guys driving to the studio early in the morning and like setting it up, but it's like the whole thing, right? It's like the whole thing of like getting on that schedule, and you guys did it multiple times, so you had the idea of
I loved doing the appeal sessions. It was great. Getting that Maida Vale, so like you say, you'd set off 8 in the morning, get there at noon or whatever, and then you're in Maida Vale till 8 at night. It's just great. I mean, such a brilliant building and such staff, the engineers and everything were all great, and there was just no room for messing about, which is I think is the best way to do anything. I think, I mean, no room for messing about. It could be the motto of the fall, really. For whatever reason, you weren't there to fuck around. You were there to get on with it.
Yeah, that's right. What did other bands use that peel session time? It seemed like most of it is just like live takes, right? Live takes of the band performing. But I'm wondering if you did overdubs, like use it as a studio instead of just the recording space.
There is a little bit of that. I think there was a little limited scope for that, and the engineers would be more than happy for you to do it.
Okay,
there just isn't the time, There isn't the time to then go back and say I'm going to redo that guitar, and then I don't think that would be entering in the spirit of it, really.
Right.
I suppose you could, but most of the time, as far as I'm aware, we did some jiggery pokery, and there's a bit where you take the instruments out and put echo on and things like that, but very little. It is kind of capturing the live sound.
Did you guys always know what you were going to play? Was like the 4 tracks? Were you practicing them leading up to it, or was it? Did
Pretty
they?
much. I don't think we did a lot of rehearsal for Hassel Schmuck, shall we say? I think there was a lot of preparation there, as you can probably tell. But pretty much, yeah. I'm trying to think now. Hip Priest was pretty loose when we did it. We were playing it live, but not much. Because that really wasn't written, that song. That kind of evolved over a period of time. So by the time we took it to the field session, it wasn't finished, really. And there was a bit of that, I suppose. There's a couple of them you think, Winter's not really finished, is it? But we were the kind of band that were playing these live, so it was just a stop along the way, if you like. Stop along the way between writing it and recording it was to do it for the field session. So it was just part of the process, if you like. Sometimes we knew songs backwards, like, but a lot of the time they were still a bit tentative, which again brings its own rewards, doesn't it? I would say that my favourite time of playing music is the bit between where you don't know it and the bit where you know it backwards. That bit in the middle, where just anything could happen there, And thankfully, that's kind of where we record with House of Old, which is great. It takes your brain to a different place. He's going to do something here, and I'm not going to know what the hell he's doing, so I'm going to have to concentrate.
Yeah, it seems pretty intimidating. To most of your rehearsal time is live on stage in front of a studio, or not in a studio, in front of a live audience.
It's rubbish. I hate rehearsing. It's awful rehearsing. It's soul destroying, isn't it? But I mean, you've got to do it. Don't get me wrong. And it's not really fair. And there may have been a bit of that with the fall, but not much, not a lot. Where the person who watches the gig of the first night of the tour gets a worse show than the last night of the tour.
Yeah,
that's not really fair either, is it? So what you've got to do is you've got to make that. If you don't know it that well, you've got to give it something else. You've got to compensate for the fact that it's not slick with something else, which a different kind of tension, if you like. A good title for an album, not different.
That's a very good title for an album. Did you guys ever record rehearsals in order to gauge the progress of songs or get ideas?
A little bit, I suppose. I don't remember a great deal of it. We used to record at gigs a lot. Used to be like cassettes. Hence why there's 14 million bootlegs out there.
That makes sense.
A lot of them are desk tapes, But even then, you wouldn't listen to them too much. They'd be interesting to listen to, but there was never a question of us sitting around saying, "Oh, you did that there.
Sure.
Why don't you do that again?" None of that was ever done. Certainly when I was in the band, there was never any post-mortems of. You get sometimes might come out and say that was shit or that was great, but you wouldn't get, that bit you did in the third verse of Joe Bonnie Rifle. I think you should do that twice, and that never entered into the discussion at all. We didn't talk about music really.
Yeah.
We talked about music. We talked about I like that single by whoever, but we didn't talk about that drum fill you do. Carl, that drum fill you do halfway. I think that's really good, but I think if you did it 3 bars earlier, that just never anything like that.
On to the next gig. Steve and I are always talking about you and yourself and Steve playing together, and it's like for us, like how the Everly Brothers had that blood harmony. You guys got like that. You guys got
definitely,
yeah. We're always like, you guys got that blood rhythm section.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering.
So.
No, it's great, and we're just wondering if it's because you played with other bass players, if you feel that too when you guys play together, is that lock-inness
Definitely,
is yeah, you do? Yeah.
I do, yeah. There's nothing to beat it. It's the greatest thing, really. It's just something I don't take for granted. And it's, I'm a better drummer when I play with him, and I think he's a better bass player when he plays with me. I mean, he might disagree with that, but he probably would disagree with me because but there is something about it, and there is like that, we both instinctively know not to improvise. I think that's the main thing.
Sure. When you first got that drum kit, did you guys jam together, or was he already, in the fall, so it's limited time?
We did a couple of times. He wasn't in the fall when I first got a drum kit.
Oh,
he was.
Yeah.
No, he was in So if I was 14, that was he was certainly was in a band called. He was in a band called Staff 9. I played with them a couple of times. They did a couple of writing things in our house, Steve and Craig, and my drum kit was set up in the bedroom then, and I haven't been playing that long, obviously. But they did basically use me as a human drum machine, and you just play along with this to tape it or whatever. But so I did play with them, and the only other time I played with Steve, went to watch the fall rehearse when Mike Lee was in the band, because you could do that in them days. He would they'd let people come in and watch them rehearse, and there was a drum kit already set up from another band. So Mark said, "Do you want to jump on the kit?" So me and Mike played for 10 minutes or whatever. But I hadn't really played with Steve other than that
Hmm.
before I joined the Fall, which is weird, isn't it? But
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I'd never been on stage with him or anything like that.
Huh.
I mean, why would I? You know, he was in the
Yeah.
Fall. They weren't going to get me up. They weren't going to get me up until they did, and that was only because they were stuck.
That's great. No, that's great. You've written multiple books that we love, and Steve too, obviously. I'm wondering if you're an avid reader of music biographies, autobiographies in general.
I do like that. I do like
Yeah.
biographies. Yes, I mean sometimes they get a bit wearing sometimes, and I really don't like the ones that are a list of the debauched things they do. I can't stand.
Yes. Okay. Good.
I cannot stand them. You know,
Yeah.
you've got some guy going on about how how many drugs he took and how many women he went with. I can't stand
Yes.
them kind of books. I mean, who cares? You know,
Yeah.
and I really really avoid those if I can. What you want is, you want to know what it's like to be in a band. You know, you want Diary of a Rock and Roll Star, really, don't you? Which is still one of these
Exactly.
great books. Yeah,
Exactly right.
yeah,
There's something to it too because I love them just as much. I think they're honestly the best autobiography genre is like the musician writing because there's something about a musician that has they they have like an almost an embedded storytelling like
yeah.
nature to
That's
it.
right. Yeah, the Dylan book's great for that, isn't it? 'Cause
The
it's kind
Dylan
of
book,
yeah, it's great, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
It tells a story, but it's not necessarily his life story, is it? But it's definitely a story.
It's got the tinge to it that it's like this did kind of happen, but then also it didn't
Yeah,
happen because it's more in his stuff.
yeah.
Also, I'm wondering if you like the Keith Richards one.
Yeah, I did really like the Keith Richards one. That's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
again, because it's not, it could be, like Cocksucker Blues or whatever, and any of that. It could be that
Right.
crap, but it's not. And you're as likely to get his recipe
Yeah.
for shepherd's pie as you are about how he wrote "Start Me Up," which is great.
Yes.
That's what you want.
Yes. Yeah.
I like the Elton John one. I thought that was good.
Mm,
He was very, very hard on himself, I think. But there's lots of great music
yeah.
books, and the Elvis, the Peter Garalnik the two Elvis books are fabulous books. I mean, but
Yes. Yep.
well, my favorite. It's not a biography, but my favorite book about music would be Revolution in the Head. I think the Ian McDonald about the Beatles.
I haven't read that one yet. No, no.
Oh man, if you like the Beatles, it's just I could not recommend it to you highly enough.
Okay, that sounds
It's
great.
fabulous, honestly. You do a page a day, song at a time. It's just there's,
Oh,
there's a couple of amazing essays about the '60s and about the Beatles themselves at the beginning and the end, and then he goes through every track. But it's not like it's the right amount of nerdy and the right amount of fanciful or whatever the proper word is. I don't know.
that's what
Arty,
it
I
is.
suppose would be the word. He's such a good writer, and he's clearly knows what he's talking about musically
Yeah.
as well as culturally. And to get
Yeah.
that mix of someone who's that on the ball culturally, who actually knows how songs work. Honestly, I can't
Mhm.
recommend it highly.
Okay, that sounds great. That sounds great. I'm wondering if you got anything on the docket as far as writing. It seems like
I
you
have.
enjoy it. Yeah.
I do write. I do write. I enjoy it. Yeah. It's been a gift, really. I did a degree.
Oh,
They have a thing they call the Open University,
yeah.
which is like a university it's open to anyone to do. So you don't need necessarily qualifications to start it. And I did that while I was working,
Yeah.
and it kind of turned on a tap really, of writing, and it's one of the best things I've ever done. So yeah, it's just to have that because it's great because it's different from being in a band. It's complete opposite really. You're not collaborative. It's just you on your own. And so yeah, I have got a couple of things. I can't really. I've got one book I've been working on a while. It's going to take a while. Yeah, it's about the place where I live, or where I was brought up, called Wythenshawe, which is a council estate. I don't know what the equivalent would be in project,
Oh,
I
sure.
suppose.
Yeah, project. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but it's
Housing.
it's unique because it's right out of town. It's like like you get the urban right in the centre of town. They get really run down. But this one, they kind of moved everybody out to the outskirts of Manchester and built this
Huh.
purpose estate for poor people, basically, low income people.
Right.
And it was like a unique experiment, really. It's massive. It was the biggest council estate in Europe at one stage, but it was built differently. I'm telling you the whole thing of it, but
This is great.
it sounds like it's urban decay, but it was built so that everybody had a garden, and there was parks everywhere, and there's lawns, and it was basically to say to working class and poor people, you don't have to live in the inner city slums. You can live somewhere and give people a decent chance. Now, whether it works or not is open for debate. But then the idea of the book is to then talk about what culturally came out of that. So there's me and Steve and Mark Riley came from there, and Johnny Marr,
right.
and Billy Duffy came from there, and there's a couple of artists that came from there, some actors. So it's basically saying this social experiment, what did it throw up in terms of... So that's basically what I'm writing about. I haven't quite worked out how to turn it into a book yet, but that's what I'm writing at the moment.
That sounds really intriguing, though. I mean, I like that. I like that concept because even like we were talking about at the beginning, going to a different culture to go
Yeah.
record somewhere, there's something that happens where it gets, I don't know, there's something that happens that finds its way into the
Yes.
creativity. I'm just wondering, if not to ruin the book manuscripts, but what do you think about, that kind of environment? How did that influence maybe just you as a creative person?
It's that's quite not how I'm going to articulate is quite what I haven't worked out, but there's a definite influence. There's a big Irish sort of element to Wythenshawe. A lot of Irish people that were in the centre of Manchester, and then they knocked all the slums down, all the terraced houses in Manchester, and a lot of them got moved. So that would be the case for Johnny Marr. He was very similar. The Irish families moved to the centre of Manchester for work. Then there's a slum clearance, and they got farm out to Wythenshawe. And what effect that had on? Because that's a big. If you look at a lot of the music in Manchester, there's a big element of that Irish diaspora. That it feeds into it. So I'm still working out how this is going to work out. But there's a book in there.
That's cool. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
I love to hear it. Love to hear it. Paul, we only got a couple minutes. We've been loving chatting with you. Thank you for spending your hour with us. But we got a couple questions just to throw at you right quick. Is there any fall item that you had in the past, instrument, anything at all that you lost or you don't know where it is that you would love to have?
Well, I had a drum kit nicked the day before I left the band.
Oh, what kind was it?
It was this. So I had the really crappy drum kit that I'd kind of put together myself from different bits of different kits, and I had that for quite some time, from like 80 to 80. Well, 83.
Yeah.
And when we signed to Beggars, I got this shiny new Premier drum kit, silver, beautiful it was.
Yeah.
So we used that, and then I carried on using that to at the end of 84, and then in the November we did a gig. Where it was? I think it was Wales, I think, and we got everything nicked out of the van, and it really kicked off. And it kicked off to an extent that me and Steve both left the band. So I wouldn't mind that drum kit back if anybody's got that out there. That wouldn't be bad. I mean, I'm not massively into stuff,
Yeah.
I'm not at all into that kind of. I don't collect things in that respect. There's loads of vinyl that I wish I still had that I didn't keep. There's some posters. Mark's got the poster from the Rainbow when we played with The Cure. He's got that on the wall in his office at Mark Riley. That is it. So there's a. I'd like one of them. The Hammersmith Palais gig we did with the birthday party. I wouldn't mind a copy of that poster. I'll tell you what I really like.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to send me one, and I don't suppose they will. Because we did a gig. The last gig I ever played with the Fall was in Liverpool at the Royal Court, and it was a benefit for the Liverpool Council, and it was us, the Smiths, New Order, and John Cooper Clarke.
Yeah.
It's from Manchester with Love. So if anybody's got that T-shirt in an extra large, not that I'd wear it, but I would love one of those. Every time I've seen one online, I've gone, have you got? And then no one's giving them away. But that was quite important in a lot of ways. Obviously it was that lineup at the start, and it was the fact that it was my last gig. So but again, that's just stuff, isn't it? I'm not. There's no. My house burnt down. I wouldn't be running back in to save anything material. Really. There's more important things and stuff.
Is there anything that's counterintuitive that you learned from being in the Fall?
Counterintuitive? I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't know really. I suppose it was just that it was different in the Fall from other bands, and I based my experience of what being in a band is on the Fall, and that's probably wrong. That's not counterintuitive, though, really. I don't think so.
Yeah.
Counterintuitive, I suppose, would be getting better at your instrument. It's probably a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you have any times when, like, after you had left the Fall, that you were like, oh, they need a drummer? Like, maybe think about going back in or trying to get your foot back in the door?
Well, no, the nearest I got was then, actually, when I played with my last gig. I had left by then, and it carried on with just Carl, and then there was Carl. I don't know what happened, but he needed a drummer for some gigs, so I did like 3 or 4 gigs and some recording, and I could have rejoined then. I think they would have had me back. We did what was it? It was Living Too Late. We did that, and Living Too Long, and whatever the other one was. And we did a couple of other tracks. We did Dr. Faustus off Ben Sinister, and I could have gone back then, but I didn't want to. I didn't. I realised that's something I did realise then. I had such a good time on those last few gigs, and playing in the studio, and I realised that the reason I had such a good time is because I wasn't in the band. I wasn't relying on it. I wasn't worried about Mark kicking off or saying the wrong thing. So I thought, well, I can't go back now because I'll do it within 10 minutes. It'll just be exactly as it was before. So yeah, I could have gone back, but I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't.
It's nice to hear that you had one of the few experiences where you left on a nice term. You know, I mean, like,
I left on a real high. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, on a high, exactly.
Yeah. That gig with the, at Liverpool, brilliant, and what a, good place to end it.
Yeah, absolutely. The last thing we want to ask you is there anything that you consider something that you consider Marquis Smith was underrated at, that he doesn't get enough credit for?
I think what I've come to realise with writing about the Fall is just how well planned out it was, really. It takes a lot of work to make things look so chaotic, I think. Certainly, if you look at X-Induction now, and I didn't realise it till I really looked at the book, everything about that, from the length of the album, the cover, what's written on it, the songs that are on it, the way the sleeve looks, there's a theme, there's different themes running through it, like when, nothing quite makes sense in terms of time, that things start going backwards, and then the drums slip out of time on Winter, and then Carl's drums make things sound like they're slowing down and speeding up. The whole thing's really well thought out and really clever, and I think people think, and it's an old one, people think he was just this sort of, drunken guy in the corner shouting things out, and he was very much not that. I mean, he could be at times, but he was, when he wanted to, he could buy and sell most musicians and writers. He probably didn't do it enough, to be honest. But I think that's one thing I've learned is there's a lot of clever stuff going on, and you can see it. You can see it by the amount of stuff that's written about the Fall, that you couldn't write about a lot of other bands. There just isn't the depth there. There isn't enough substance to write. You're not going to get. There's a lot of writing about the Fall that you wouldn't get about. You might get about the Beatles. You might get it about Bob Dylan. You might get it about Miles Davis, maybe. But you're not getting it about Oasis.
Yeah.
Just not that there's anything wrong with Oasis particularly, but there's a lot of that. There's a lot there. There's a lot to look at, and a lot to think about, and which is great. And he never pandered. He always gave it something. I think that's something I've learned is it's okay to be difficult. It's okay to be esoteric, and it's okay to be a bit obscure. It just makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
So that one thing I do know is interesting trumps good or bad every time. Good or bad records is a matter of opinion, but interesting.
Yeah.
The Fall records are always interesting, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, beautifully said. We agree, and that's why we appreciate you chatting with us, Paul.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, we love the podcast. We love the books. And we look forward to any future projects you guys get on, and hopefully you guys keep playing those gigs, because we want to come catch one of those live gigs.
Oh, great! Yeah,
House of All. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thanks again, and cheers.